But being a female cop, like it's a whole different story. Like I feel like we don't really get as close with our coworkers or our beat partners because there's always going to be that perception of, oh, like they're sleeping together or, oh, he's trying to sleep with her type of thing. So I almost feel like sometimes you can only be friendly to an extent or think of yourself and being in only work mode because you don't want to be yourself sometimes and it be taken as like you're trying to sleep with someone. Almost like you have to watch your personality because it can be taken as a different thing.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fit for Duty podcast, episode number 15 with Gilbert Rios and Taylor Lopes. Today we have a special guest with us. I'll be our first female guest. That's a female cop. Alma, did you want to just go by your first name or what do you want to do?
We can just do my first name, yeah.
But yeah, to kind of get into it, obviously we just finished our episode, this last one about females working in law enforcement. Obviously, you guys know our take, mine and Taylor's take about that topic, and that's what we're going to always go pretty much go by. But kind of like before we get into all the nitty gritty or everything like that, what made you get in law enforcement? How long have you been working?
So I've been working for about 3 years with my current agency. I live an active lifestyle myself. So I love working out. I love going to the gym. I love keeping myself busy. I can't really just, stay at home, be at one spot for a long time. I get super anxious and like it doesn't feel right for me just sitting around in one spot. And then growing up, I would always like tell my parents, hey, I want to be a cop. I want to be a cop, like the typical thing kids say, like when they watch movies. And they kind of just like brushed it off. They're like, oh, okay, like she'll get over it type of thing. But the more I grew up, I couldn't really see myself working like a desk job or a normal 9 to 5 type of job. I feel like I would get bored. And I feel like I would want to change my environment very quickly. And I'm a very caring person too. I like helping people. So the more I grew up, the more I was like, well, hey, I think I really do want to be a cop, because you're always on the go. You don't stay in one spot for long. And then with me being a deputy, I move around from area to area all the time. And it's something different every day. Like, yeah, some things may be routine in the job, but there's things that are always going to catch you sideways and everything's always changing and evolving. And so, yeah, I was like, I think I want to be a cop and I just went for it.
No, that's good. Your actual last job, was that working in the gym, if I remember right?
Yeah, I worked at the gym for like 3 to 4 years before I joined the academy.
And then what's your thoughts from working in the gym to working in law enforcement?
Well, it's completely different, obviously, total different job. But I feel like just working out and being in the gym environment did get me ready for being a deputy or being a law enforcement because, as you guys know, it takes a lot of discipline to work out, be in the gym, and stay healthy. Which goes hand in hand with being a deputy. It takes a lot of discipline. There's a lot of things you have to put on the side, or a lot of things you have to sacrifice sometimes because of the job, which goes hand in hand with fitness too. You got to sacrifice those cheat meals, sacrifice going out with friends sometimes if you want to reach those certain goals that you have in the gym.
Awesome. I like that. Kind of go into that topic since you brought that up. We brought that up in the last episode as well. Like, obviously, we talked about having the physical fitness to be able to be a cop, but then also when it comes to like my thoughts when I was talking about females in law enforcement is like I always just like wanted them to kind of like I guess never wanted to lower the standard. Like if they want to be a cop, like I obviously want my females in law enforcement, but if it comes down to doing certain things, let's say SWAT or whatnot, like you have to be able to live at those standards
Mm-hmm.
as well. And then you
Yeah.
obviously being more into the fitness lifestyle, like what's your thoughts on like fitness in law enforcement and just like with other cops who don't really follow that lifestyle at all?
Uh, all right. So my honest opinion,
Yes,
I
honest
think
opinion.
that if you're a cop, you should definitely be fucking working out. Whether if it's doing some cardio, doing some push-ups at your house, like you need to try to stay fit one way or another. Not only because of the job, but like you need to stay healthy, man. because there's a bunch of other people out there that you're going to contact in the field that are, going to be in shape, that are going to be healthy, that work out, that do things that maybe you're not doing. And when it comes, for go time and you need to handle business, if you're not in shape, you're going to be freaking tired and literally fighting for your life versus, this criminal, this subject that you're contacting who has been like running and working out in jail and all these other things. Like, you need to remember that with this type of job, at any moment, you could be fighting for your life. And if you're not doing your part to, in one way or another, making sure that when it comes down to that, you're ready to go, then I don't know what to tell you.
And obviously, I know how you always say small. I like when you say it's funny. I have it in my notes as well. But obviously, I was always a more of a smaller deputy during my career, and I talked about like my mindset with that. As far as you being more of a smaller deputy as well, and on top of that, a female cop. Like, what's your thoughts on like working? Like, kind of like how tall are you again? Kind of give them an idea.
I'm 4'11" and a
Exactly.
half and a half.
So kind of give everyone like your mindset as far like what's your thoughts on being that small and working in law enforcement?
I think you have mentioned it on the podcast before too. I know for me personally, it's just, I don't know, it's just something I've had in my mind. But I know that when I meet someone, the first thing that's going through their head is, oh, her size, how small she is, like trying to size me up, like thinking of all these things. And I know it happens and it's something that I came to accept and I'm okay with it now. If you ask past me, it'd be a whole different story. But I'm okay with it now. And I know that these thoughts and perceptions of, oh, she's small, like she can't take care of herself, or oh, her size, like, she's probably not strong or anything like that. Like, I know that's the first thing that comes to people's minds, and I'm okay with that now because I know that I'm not those things. And I know that if you take half of the people that I work with to the gym with me, like I can outwork you, dude. Like I don't care what you say, I don't care how big and bad you think you are. But at the end of the day, I know I can handle my own, and I can take care of business when it comes down to it.
Would you say that that mindset like that I guess knowing what people are thinking are about you, like would you say that makes you work harder? And
Yeah, definitely. Especially in the gym. Like it's funny, I always tell my coworkers, like my coworkers that I'm really close with, like sometimes I'll be in the gym working out and I'm like I know there's someone bigger and stronger than me out there, and that pushes me sometimes to get those extra reps in, that, extra set in, because I know that there's people out there that are stronger than me. So it forces me to push myself and train harder and hold myself to a higher standard, I guess you could say.
I kind of want to go into what you brought up earlier, just right now about you said the older Alma was much different. So I kind of want to get into that. Tell me more about what the older Alma used to think. Just for anyone
Yeah.
listening, they might be feeling the same exact way.
Yeah, so like my first year of, being a deputy, I knew that all these thoughts and perceptions of me were coming through people's minds the first time they met me. And I kind of almost felt like I had to prove them wrong that first year. Like I felt like I had to put myself in certain situations to show people that, hey, I can take care of myself, I can handle myself. And then after a while, I was like, dude, why do I even care what all these people think? They're gonna think what they want at the end of the day, no matter what, no matter what I do. There's certain people that are gonna have certain perceptions of me, and I can't make everyone happy. So as long as I know that I'm okay and I can take care of myself and I know who I am, that's all that matters. Everyone else, they can think whatever they want about me, but I know who I am at the end of the day.
Do you feel like no, I love that too. Like it's an awesome answer. But do you feel like that's because you're a woman or because you're small or because you're in some people's eyes, a small woman? You know what I mean? Like I hate to use the word small because I'm a
No,
short guy too, because it's
I
like,
am small.
but you know what I
Small,
mean? Like
small.
Small,
small.
SMOL.
Oh,
No, yeah.
small.
I think
Oh, I
it's,
get it now.
It means
yeah, it's
I
a
get it. I didn't
meme.
get it earlier. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's both. Definitely both of them. And I'll just give you guys like an example of experience I had a really, really long time ago. Um, when I was working with the new crew, I had a new beat partner, right? Never talked to this person, never, anything like that. And I remember like probably the third question he asked me was like, "Have you ever gotten in a use of force?" And I was like, "What?" Like I knew what he meant by that. I knew what he was thinking and his
Yeah.
like the intention he had behind that question. And I was like, at that time, I hadn't yet, so I was like, "No, I haven't." And he kind of gave me a look, and I was like, "Oh my god, I know what this fool's thinking already." But it was funny because literally a few days after that, I got into my first use of force, and I took care of business by myself. And then after that, the next day, like in briefing, he was like bragging about like how I took care of the situation and stuff. And then from there on, it was like I earned his respect, because he knew that he could trust me and like I can take care of business when it comes down to it. So I do think it's both being a woman and being small, because when people see me, not only do they see me as a female, but they're like, "Oh, well, she's tiny too." Like kind of like two stripes type of thing, I guess.
Yeah, no, that
Exactly.
makes sense.
Because I always thought, and I never telling Taylor about that. I think we probably talked about it too the last episode, was that I was always more of the smaller deputy, and Taylor's just slightly taller than me, but obviously much more of a tank than me. But I always said like I could only imagine if I was on top of that a female cop being this small as well. So that's why I wanted you to have you on here to kind of get your mindset on that as well. And like you said, like it's two strikes for you, but that only makes you that work that much harder, which was
Yeah.
great to hear that from yourself. Um, because at the end of the day, too, people don't understand like with my mindset, and I never looked at it as like a negative thing. And like the funny thing was like I used to look at a lot of cops who were much taller or just fatter, and like I said, I'm always frank. I don't care. I always looked at them like they're gonna be the fucking problem to my day. Like I can't.
Yeah,
It's gonna be hard to
I
trust
think that
them.
way too. Yeah.
So like it kind of goes both ways. Like I guess we all do it, you know.
Mhm.
But I think the taller ones tend to forget like they're just as much as a problem, or they're just as much of there's not as much confidence in them as well. It all just comes down to the person, how they conduct themselves and how they are and whatnot. So, but to kind of go into what you're saying, like what we're talking about, it is like give us like what is it like working as a female cop? Just kind of go into that.
Um, well, I guess I can start with the whole relationship part because you guys dove into that, and I know that's like a huge issue being a female cop. As far as like relationships, I mean like relationships with your coworkers and friendships and things like that. Like you guys are guys, you guys don't have to worry about like any. I mean it's 2022. Maybe I should watch what I say before I offend anyone on here, but um, generally, you guys are bros. Like you guys don't have to worry about anything else. Like if you get along with a coworker really good, if you guys go on calls together, if you guys like park, report right next to each
Mm,
other, just things like that. You guys don't have to worry about anything else.
the perception.
Um, exactly. But being a female cop, like it's a whole different story. Like I feel like we don't really get as close with our coworkers or our beat partners because there's always going to be that perception of, oh, like they're sleeping together, or oh, he's trying to sleep with her type of thing. So I almost feel like sometimes like you can only be friendly to an extent, or sometimes, think of yourself and being in only work mode because I don't know, you don't want to, be yourself sometimes and it be taken in a different way, if you get what I'm saying, or taken as like you're trying to get at someone or you're trying to sleep with someone or something like that. Like almost like you have to watch your personality because it can be taken as a different thing.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and I think we mentioned it last time. It is a double standard. Like,
Exactly.
There is no the people who try and deny it are so full of shit. Like it is such a double standard, and it's bullshit. But I get it at the same time. Like, kind of, it's just human nature. The biggest part with me, and correct me if I'm wrong, because like I don't know, but I also feel like the perception is there, but it comes down to like, oh, this female is essentially a hoe and trying to bang all these deputies. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you see a
Yeah.
male deputy go talk to 20 people or hang out with 20 people, no one says anything. If a female like talks to 5 guys, next thing you know, it's like she's the biggest whore in the agency and she's trying to sleep with everybody. And it's like, bro, what are you
Hmm.
talking? Like, she's nice. Or on our side of
Exactly.
it, yeah, and on our side of it, like I talked about Lost podcast. I always wanted everyone to feel comfortable, but especially the females, because I got it, right? Like I have 4 daughters, like I get it. So I would go out of my way to try and make them feel comfortable and not intimidated or anything like that, because a lot of guys would try and intimidate females. And the next thing you know, it's like, oh, Taylor just wants to have sex with all of them. Like, seriously? So I guess the other 277 male deputies that I've mentored or guided through my career. Apparently, I tried to sleep with all of them too. It's just crazy how people's mindset works when there's like an opposite gender there. Um, yeah, it's mind blowing. Like, is that just us feeling that way, or like do you feel that way too?
No, yeah, I definitely feel that way because it's like, okay, like take the deputy part of it out, and I guess like for an even like a normal guy, like it's normal for a guy to be talking to 10 different girls at the time, dating 3 girls at the time, like, sleeping with more than one girl at the time. But when it comes to being a girl, like the second you're even like dating or, like not seriously dating, but going on dates with two guys at the same time and people find out, it's like, oh, she's the biggest fucking whore. Oh, she's sleeping around with everyone. It's like, dude, you just slept with like 3 different girls last night. I'm going on dates with someone, and you're like definitely a double standard there. I agree with you.
I've always hate that's the one I hated the most was that thinking right there. Even in high
Yeah.
school. Because I mean I was a I would say I was a pretty big man whore in high school. And when I would hear like someone else talk about a girl, I'm like, and that was like another bro, I'm like, how is she different from us? Like, what's the difference? I don't get
Yeah.
it. And so it just, yeah, it makes no sense at all.
Do you just on like just a quick question? So do you feel like either guys or like more or less, I guess maybe supervisors, I don't know, just guys in general, a lot of like male supervisors treat you different to try and avoid that perception? Like, is that awkward for you? Like, as soon as that, I really don't know. Like, I've had
Yeah.
conversations with people, but that's like a genuine, I have no idea. Like, from your side of it, do you feel like you're treated different by admin or
Mm.
supervisors or whatever? Because, like, if Rio's had a problem, I'd be like, hey, bro, like, meet me out at this, intersection. Literally, you're a deputy, right? So you get it and fucking bumfuck Egypt out here where no one's
Yeah.
at. I need to talk to you. And he would show up and we'd sit there and we would talk. Now, do you feel like supervisors wouldn't do that with you? Or if, I guess it's a multi question, if they did do that with you, did you feel uncomfortable
That's a good
type thing?
question.
Does that make sense? Like, did
Yeah.
that, like,
Yeah.
did they treat you different? Did it make you feel uncomfortable? And if it was a male supervisor who did it to you, then you had a female supervisor did it, did you feel different or better because it was a female supervisor? A lot of
Okay.
questions in one. So,
Okay. I'll try to. I should have had like some notebooks with me, like
you
to
go.
write these
We'll
things down.
remind you.
But
Don't worry.
whatever. Okay. So I've actually been very fortunate to have worked for amazing sergeants. And all of them, I think within the first week that I worked for them, they addressed it. They're like, hey, like just so you know, like you're a female, X, Y, and Z is going to be thought about you. But just so you know, I don't see you that way, and I'm never gonna hold you being a female like against you or treat you differently because of that. And I have so much respect for those sergeants that did that because of the fact that it was addressed. I knew how they felt about it, and I knew I didn't have to worry about any of those issues with them. And they never made me feel awkward. They never made me feel uncomfortable. Those sergeants that did that, they always made me feel just like any other deputy, which if I could personally thank them right now, I would personally thank them. They've been awesome. So
No, I love to
yeah,
hear that. Like that is awesome. Like
yeah,
that's actually really good to hear. Like they had the balls or like the courage to be essentially be like, hey, I don't want to sleep with you. You're a deputy. Like just
yeah,
work, and I'm gonna treat you like everybody else. I love that.
That's
yeah,
good leadership
e-
on their part right there.
Yeah.
exactly. And I've also I've been on calls with multiple of those sergeants where like someone on a call would say something disrespectful to me, and they would step in for me and they'd be like, hey, she's a fucking deputy, like you don't talk to her like that, or you don't disrespect that, like you don't do that. And like me, being a female deputy, seeing that my own sergeant would step in and have my back or step in and say something for me, like that meant a lot too, because it made me feel like, hey, like he really did mean what he said to me when he had that conversation with me, that he's going to treat me just like everyone else. So I've been fortunate. I've never had anyone really rub me off in a weird way. Like I've had sergeants that do tell me, hey, meet me up here. Like we need to go over your eval, or we need to talk about something, or I have some paperwork I have to give you. But I have never ran into any of those issues where I felt weird or uncomfortable. But I think it's because all of that was established within the first week that I met them.
Do you also think that's because how you carry yourself as well? You
I
know what I
think
mean?
so
Like
too.
you don't put off those vibes. Like I mean, I'll be honest with you. I worked with females who like I was like, oh, day one, like I got nothing to worry about here because as a male, you're worried about like some sexual harassment claim or like
Yeah.
some bogus shit, right? And you're like, oh, I don't got to worry about that. And then there's some that I'm friends with, but they talk like dudes and they're vulgar. So I'm like, man, I don't know, like that's kind of uncomfortable. And then there's others who puts off that flirtatious vibe. So I think you bring up a really good point. Like, so no one essentially tried that with you, and that's good on them. Obviously, it sounds like amazing leadership. But you also feel like you established that yourself. Like you kind of came in day one, like, hey, I'm not sleeping my way to the top. I'm not flirting with you. But you know what I mean? Like I'm here to work. I'm a deputy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it too, because even so a little more on my background, just so everyone can get an idea. So the agency that I'm with is the agency that I started with, like from the beginning. They sponsored me through the academy and everything like that. So I've been around, these sergeants and these deputies for the past like 4 years of my life, essentially. And I remember like when I was starting, I had one specific, he's like a senior deputy. He told me, hey, don't date anyone from your agency. I am just telling you this. Like, it is the best piece of advice I can give you. And then he went more into like why. And then I was like, wow, I was like, that does make sense. So from there on, I told myself that I would keep work and my relationship separate, because I don't know if you guys have heard of that saying where it's like, don't shit where you eat.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So from the beginning, I was like, and I would just hear stories and I'm like, dude, that sounds horrible. And just the thought of having to come back to work, like knowing that everyone's going to know your business because, everyone's a little chismoso and everyone loves to gossip and everything. So
Oh yeah.
from the beginning, I told myself I'm not going to mix work with pleasure. And I think that's what helped me a lot too. And not saying that there's anything wrong if you're a female cop and you decide to do that. But I feel like for me personally, that's what's helped me a lot in not running into, any awkward situations or dreading to come to work or having like people talk about me.
Oh, and it's
No,
true
yeah,
because you go, Taylor.
no, I was gonna say the same thing. I've heard that from other female deputies like that I worked with who are actually like now married to coworkers or like broke up
Yeah.
with coworkers, and they said the same thing. Like, not that they would change their marriage, but essentially like, yeah, I would never want to. If I did it again, I would not date within the agency or whatever because it just created. And then plus you get. I mean, there's just more issues like the whole like if one's a supervisor type shit, and
Mm-hmm.
it happens, but.
Yeah.
No, I get what you're saying, and I think that's a good idea.
And I think that's probably like one of the biggest advice that I would tell, a younger female going into law enforcement is just probably there's so many other agencies, there's so many other people. If you really want to date a cop, dude, just go to a different agency. It's it's not that hard. So I would just keep it separate if you can. And I mean, if you want to ignore me and Taylor and Gilbert right now, then go for it. You go for it. But I would highly recommend you just keep them as far away as you can.
Shit, don't even date because then you'll be all working shift work and probably never see each other sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
even on top of that, like we were saying, like there's even if it was like let's say it was a bad relationship or a good one if you dated in the same department, the bad thing is people are gonna gossip. The second thing is the assumptions, and the third thing
Mm-hmm.
is that people are gonna talk about it 10, 15, 20 years later. Because when I
Yeah.
came in as a new deputy, I was hearing stories from people who made that mistake freaking 10, 15 years later of the same, and now I know more about them. They don't even know that I know more about them and what they've done in the past in the agency with their like
Mm-hmm.
relationship stuff. I'm just like, that's got to be like, they'll always be talked about. That same exact thing that happened that they did with that person or whatever will always be talked about. And then it's just like, so it's like the fact that you went looking inside the department, like you'll never get away from that. It'll be out, it'll be 10 years from now and the people will still keep bringing it up for some reason because that's just what they like to do.
Yeah.
So that's the bad thing. um I I kind of want to go into that same question Taylor was asking, but now amongst your peers.
About making me feel
But
weird and
what was that?
uncomfortable,
Kind of go
or
back into that question, Taylor. Like,
Oh yeah, I mean, there's just yeah, I guess around like take the supervisor part of it. Um, you know, being around the male partner or being around the female partner, like do you feel like either one you're being treated different or you're more comfortable around the female partner or a male partner or like do you feel like if a male partner is going out of his way or to be almost like friendly with you or always showing up with you or and vice versa or like do you see male I guess in general too like how about do you see your coworkers non-supervisors almost hit on female deputies all the time like make it a point to kind of flirt with them too just kind of on the line level.
mm, well, my agency doesn't really have many females. It's literally me, two other like actual beat female deputies, and
Yeah.
there's three other ones that are like higher up, like detectives type of thing. So it's
Okay.
literally me and two other girls that are out on the field right
Yeah.
now. Whenever I've gotten to work with one of them, whenever I did get to work with one of them, it was like I guess almost more comforting and soothing in terms of I didn't have to worry about, oh, I'm parked next to this person for this amount of time or more than this amount of time. Like people are going to start thinking something else. It was more like I can just do my job and not even have to worry about like anything else, just focus on just, getting my reports done without saying, I think I should maybe go like park somewhere else by myself now because I've been parking next to this person for too long or just things like that. So it is more just like I don't have to worry about like rumors or anything like that whenever I'm working with a female deputy, I guess, versus when I'm working with guys. But the thing is, whenever I work with the guys, there's certain guys that I already know, like how Taylor was saying earlier, are known for hitting on girls or known for talking, like, trying to hit on the girls. So I just avoid them. Like, it's not hard to avoid them. I just, like, if we show up on a call, we show up on a call together. Okay, well, take care of business, take care of the call. But after that, I'm fucking gone, dude. Like, you're not going to see me hanging out there any much longer, because I don't want
Yeah.
to allow anything to happen or I don't want anything to be said or any misconceptions or even like the guy to take like anything I say the wrong way because I'm very friendly and I'm very like goofy and ditzy. And the last thing I would want is for my personality to be taken as something else because, I'm married and I love my husband and
I
I
love
would
him too.
hate for, yeah, we know you do. I would just I don't know. I would hate for any rumors or anything like that to come out of it because I value our relationship a lot, which is why I've kind of been more like private with it lately. But I don't want any room for, anything to be misunderstood because of how
so
much I value it.
so with that being said, we're all married here. It just kind of jogged a weird thought into my head. So if you're slow and a male beat partner says, meet me at behind this store. Like it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm tired of shit or whatever. Let's just, type report. So you normal meetup.
Oh
You meet
yeah.
there for an hour with a male beat partner, and you talk, right? Just talk for an hour, talk about whatever. I'm trying to think of how to word this. So as you're married, do you feel okay? And then say on the other night you meet with a female doing the same thing, right? Do you feel like you, and I tread lightly with this, but I think you'll know where I'm going with it. Do
Well,
you feel like you're
just say it. Just say
I mean, do you feel like you're
it.
disrespecting your husband or doing something wrong by sitting with that male beat partner for an hour or 2 hours, just sitting there talking about life and kids and past or whatever, for sitting with a female partner for a year or for an hour or whatever?
I mean,
Or is it
I
based
don't
on is it just based on the context of the conversation? I guess I don't know. It's just kind of
exactly. Yeah.
interesting for me to hear from a female, like, because for me, I probably would be like, yeah, and I wouldn't, but I could see how someone would say, like, oh, you sat and talked with this female. What if your wife found out? For me, my wife knows. Like, she'd be like, yeah, it's
Hmm.
okay, that's him. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So does that matter? Like, it's kind of a complicated question, but it's interesting to hear from your perspective, like how you see it.
Yeah. So luckily, so funny story, before me and my husband were married, I remember like I had a serious talk with him about my job because of, all the perceptions and everything that goes along with it. And I've seen, girls go through a lot of issues with being a cop and being in relationships and things like that, that I let him know. It's like, hey, like I'm a cop. I'm gonna be surrounded by guys all the time. My coworkers are gonna be guys like 99% of the time. Like, it is what it is. If you're okay with it, you're okay with it. But if not, it's not gonna work out. And that's just, I'm very like blunt and real with a lot of things. But I feel like that just had to be addressed too, because I didn't want to be running into issues later in the relationships where it's like, hey, like you're working with all these guys, and or just anything like that. So that was established in the beginning. And after we had that conversation, he's like, no, I know, I get it. Like, I'm okay with it. Like, I don't mind. It's just, it's work. At the end of the day, that's all that it is. And I think that's what helped me a lot going into the job too. It's like I knew, like, my husband was like, well, my husband now, but he was supportive, and he knew that I was going to be around all these guys, but he knew that I wasn't looking for anything else or had any other intentions behind it. So I think it's very important to make that like clear at the beginning if you really want to be a cop. And if your partner's not okay with it, or they're the jealous type or anything like that, that's something that you need to take into consideration, because if not, you're going to be running into problems throughout the whole relationship. And it's going to come to a point, I've seen it come to a point where it's like, okay, it's either a relationship or your job. And it's like, do you really want to be with someone who doesn't trust you enough to, like, you formulate your career and do what you want to do? So I think that it's important to I don't know why people just don't bring stuff up. Like, it's not hard to talk about stuff. Like, communication, if you communicate things with people, it makes it a whole lot like easier in the long run, and you won't really run into those like little
No,
bumps
I
down
love
the
it.
road.
I think that's a great answer, and lesson, what I mean? Just kind of great info, like straight to the point. No, I love it. I think it's great. And I've had that talk with people too, of like, and real Gilbert and I have talked about it. It was like, everyone thinks like just cops are these big cheaters, right? And I'm
Yeah.
just like, we're just like, no, we're just in the fucking limelight. Like, I know plenty of people who cheat and, different
Hmm.
stuff like that. And I love hearing it from a female, pretty much like, yeah, my sergeants were straight up with me, or like, I just don't put off those vibes, or like, I told my husband, I'm gonna be surrounded by guys. You either like it or you don't, but
Exactly.
you fucking trust me. You know what I mean? Like, I love it.
Hmm.
Like that, to me, like that just speaks volumes about like, if you cheat or cheated, like, and I know people listen to this who have cheated, because I talk to you guys, and that's okay. But I mean, you know what I mean? That was just a mistake you made. It has nothing to do with the job, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's just like, this job doesn't create you to be a cheater. Like, so I want the women to hear
Yeah.
it from you, like from women. I want the wives and the girlfriends and everybody to hear it from
Yeah.
you. Essentially, like, if your husband's cheating, it's not because of the job. like,
It's because
like,
it's because he's a cheater. That's why.
yeah,
It's not because he's a cop. It's like once a cheater, they're gonna be a cheater. Just because you're a cop doesn't change you. Like, I mean, it changes you, but it doesn't automatically make you into a cheater. You know, if you're a cheater before being a cop, you're gonna be a cheater when you're a cop, and after you're a cop, it's just how you are.
Brings out, yeah.
No, exactly. Because, like you said, communication is going to be key in all this. And I feel like most people, like you said, I don't get why people just don't say nothing. But I feel like I've always thought about this. I feel like most people don't want to bring nothing up to their spouse or significant other because they're worried about if they tell them something, they're going to leave. And like you said, if you can't handle this, then this is not going to work out. So they're afraid of that. They're afraid of that. What would happen if like that person said, "Oh, I can't handle this, so I can't be with you." They're afraid of that when they should be worried more about why would you want to be with someone who can't support this, because you shouldn't, no one should be taken as like, no one should be seen as a cheater in a relationship if they don't have no reason or given their spouse or significant other a reason to believe that. If they never done it, then why am I getting all this flack for it just because, let's say, I'm a female cop or whatever? And so that's why I think, again, like communication is gonna be key. Because the thing I love about my wife, like she's been with me since the Marine Corps and then as a cop, but when you leave patrol and you start like when you start being a detective, and I was working as a detective or even an investigator, when I was an investigator, I only had one partner and she was a female, and we would do surveillance for 2, 3, 4 hours in a car, like 3, 4 hours away from my town that I lived in. And then I would come back to my wife, Emily. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, we'd talk about this, talk about that. We just hung out, blah blah. We just surveillance for this, doing whatever." And she's like, "Oh, that's cool." I wouldn't even go into detail about our conversation. I just be like, "Oh yeah, it was, we did that. We worked. It was pretty fun or whatever. Or it was pretty boring. Nothing happened. But like that's pretty much what it was. And then when she met her, she was just like, "Oh hey, what's up? How's it going? My husband talked about you." But that's the great thing I have with my relationship is that I've always been I always communicate stuff like that because, and the funny thing is, like, I always talk about Roger on this podcast, but one thing me and Roger talk about all the time when I was working patrol for him was that he always says it's always the quiet ones, Rios. He's like, it's always those deputies who they're doing things at work and they don't want to bring it up even to their coworkers, like they're even the guy coworkers, like they don't want to bring up like a certain incident that happened on a traffic stop or like out in the thing. And it's because they're always trying to hide something, but it's always those deputies who are like I'll be on a traffic stop with someone and the girl would hit on me or something like that, and I would tell Roger. I wouldn't mind telling everybody. I would come home and tell Emily. I would laugh about it. It was so funny, and but it's always those quiet ones who are like, no, like once they got that hit on, they're trying to find a way to work themselves into a certain situation because now they're trying to hide it. It's always the ones that are quiet that you got to watch for. And I was like, when he told me that, I was like, that makes sense because when you do run into an incident where you see like a partner or something like that doing something, but they don't bring it up later to someone else, it's like, oh, now they're trying to be sneaky rather than just being like open. I don't know what you think about that, Taylor. That's always stuck with me when he brought that up.
Well, no, I agree 100%. Like, yeah, I mean, I the same same way with my wife. Like, what assignment I came from? Like, I'd be gone for days and weeks at a time. Like, literally be home for an hour and gone. And I would tell her, I would laugh, and she would always say, "I'm not worried about you getting hit on because you're too much an asshole. Like, you just don't put off those vibes for somebody to hit on you." I'm like, I got 5 women in my life. I got 4 daughters and a wife. The last thing I need is another one. And to back up a little bit, your wife would actually kill you, and the whole world is scared of Emily. So I'm scared of Emily. So the whole world knows. But no, I think it's true too. Cool. Oh no, I love Emily. She's my favorite. But like she would, like I'm scared when I go around it. In case you mess up, she's gonna slice your throat. But no, I think it is. I think it's important. Like if you're, God, there's some situations I want to talk about, but I won't. But I mean, it is a job. Like the opportunities are always there. Like it's like any other job. But in law enforcement, you are like it everywhere you go. Everybody is watching you. People love the uniform, male or female. It doesn't matter. The opportunities to do stupid shit are there. Like they're probably there more than us 3 realize. But I kind of get it. And like obviously I don't know her very well, but I get a pretty good vibe from her. Like right away. Like if the opportunity was there, she wouldn't even see it. You know what I mean? Like the opportunity was there for me, like I wouldn't even see it. If the opportunity was there for you, Rios, like you wouldn't see it. So it's like it's our 3 personalities that we're just like if someone's like, oh, so and so was hitting on you, you're like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Because you're just putting off this energy. You're not looking for these opportunities. But yeah, I'm the same way. Like I went down my wife, like, oh, this shit happened today. She'd be like, oh, you better not go around those hoes no more. Like joking, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's just how Nicole is, like so I had a female secretary. And I was with her like all the time. Like she would call me late at night, early in the morning, whether it was personal or work or whatever it was. She would call me all the time. but I'm like, my wife knew her. Like it was, she'd be like, "Oh, who's calling?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I would say her name, and she'd be like, "Oh, okay. Like, is she okay? Does she need something?" Like, she had a baby, and she had some, like, my wife bought her things, and like we bought her stuff, and she went through some hard times, and you know what I mean. So a lot of it is established outside of the job, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like the trust
Yeah.
is outside the
Exactly.
job. But it's interesting for me hearing it from Alma, because when people hear you and I say it, like especially the female spouses or even actually male spouses listening, I hear it all the time because I have a lot of people who call me going through divorce problems, and everyone's just like, or even like not even that, like I'll meet people and they're like, "Oh, don't set me up with a cop, they're all cheaters." And I'm like, "Oh my god, like
It's
seriously." Like
yeah.
I mean, so like here, that's why I want her to like harp on that. Like, no, that's I am a female. I see it every day. Like people truly think I that like cops go to work and there's this like big orgy going around in like an orchard in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm just
that's
like,
what happened.
I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, if that shit was happening, like I've never gotten fined. I'm personally offended now.
I'm offended now
But
too.
I love hearing a female because people I think will really, and the way she talks about it, the way you're talking about it, like is really good. And it's just, I don't know, it has nothing to do with the job, and it's just who you are kind of as a person. So
Hmm.
Oh, I like this. So on topic of marriage though, like what's it like? What's it like? What's your support system like at home, Alma? Like being married now as a cop and like you coming home to someone who doesn't work in law enforcement and like doing calls, like mental health aspect of it, going through some shit or use force or whatever it is, or even just going through, like you said, like you talked about, like you feel more comfortable. Like if you're on a call for too long, like not a call, but like you're with the deputy too long for so long rather than a female deputy, like you having that, like the difference of it, and then but like what's all the mental aspect of it, and then coming home to someone who doesn't work law enforcement, maybe doesn't understand or whatever. Like what's that like at home?
Um, hmm. Well, how do I put it? I I try to keep like my work life away from my family life. I just feel like that's just the best way that it works for us. If I do have like a hard day at work, I'll let him know. I'll get home and I'll be like, hey, today like fucking sucked. I had a shitty day. I'm not feeling so good. I just need some time on my own, or like I'm okay. I just I need some time to just decompress by myself, or like let's say I'm going through something and I need to talk to someone about it. I'll talk to him about it, but I'll leave all like the crazy nitty gritty stuff out of it too, you know? So I only give him enough to where he'll understand, but I don't go into the crazy side of what I'm struggling with, if that makes sense. Just so that way I'm giving him enough so he understands what I'm going through and what's going on with me right now, but not enough to where I feel like it's going to start affecting him too, which I'm sure is something that you guys can relate to, like having your spouse and wanting to tell them exactly what happened, but not wanting them to worry about you or suffer how the way that, like you're struggling right now. So giving them
yeah,
enough
no,
to where
that's
they understand.
yeah, that is like our exact
Mm-hmm.
thinking and ideology and what we teach and preach. Like I mean, I think that's perfect. But I don't know your husband at all, but like I think we need to have him on the show one day. That would be an interesting opinion because that's you know what I mean. That's rare. Like
I
Yeah.
was just
a
thinking
wife is
that.
married. A wife is married to a man that who's not in law enforcement. Like I was sitting here trying to think. I think every female cop I know
Is married
is
to a cop.
married to a cop.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's funny
Huh.
though, because funny story. He told me about it, like, after we were together for a while. But when we were first dating too, like his friends told him, "Oh, you're dating a female cop." Like, nah, bro. Like you need to leave. Like that's bad news. Like she's gonna be a
See,
whore.
it's
X,
just,
Y, and Z. Yeah.
that's
So it's
awful.
crazy. But yeah, and it's like, look at us now. We're like happily married and still together. So it's just that that what do you say? There's that
Just
word
that
for it.
bad. It's just that bad perception of like,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, that's crazy to hear. Like, I'm tripping out right now just listening to the whole thing. Like, I think we need to have
Hmm.
more female cops on because, like, I got a lot of like shit to unpack and ask. But because when people, I hear that too. Like I've had, females, like my wife's friends, like, oh, if you got any single friends, let me know. And I'm like, oh, oh, I don't date cops. I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, they're totally into themselves. They're cheaters and liars. And I'm like, whoa, like, I was a cop, right? Like, and I know hundreds and hundreds of cops. Yeah, there's some piece of shit, but I can only imagine what they say and think about a female cop. Like, that's crazy to think about because, they're probably like, oh, she's a hoe, or like she slept with half the agency, or blah, 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 blah. And like, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, we definitely need to have him on. We'll pick his brain.
And the bad thing, like you said, like just exactly what you're saying, and like how Alma has the same mindset as us with like, we tell our spouses so much, but then we don't really like to go in detail because we don't want them to have to feel that, have to go through the same emotions. And it's the same thing with gossip at work. And I don't get why some spouses will come home to their spouse and talk about work or the gossip to the spouse. And now the spouse has this mindset in their head of that person, but they don't even know them, and they got double, triple passed down information, and that's just their mindset now towards that whoever it is.
Yeah, because then you're almost it's so crazy. We might have to have her on like a second time, or like her and her husband on the same time. But like, because so I deal with a lot of people, right? They're going through divorces. I get a lot of calls and stuff like that. What trips me out is like, that's perfect real estate. You said that. Why do people do that? Because essentially you're breeding insecurities in your spouse. Like if you go home and like, oh, so and so is banging so and so in this rumor and that rumor, even like sounds like your husband's pretty secure and like he's okay with it, right? But in time, if you just came home and like, oh, so and so's fucking so and so, and so and so, so and so, oh, and now people think I'm doing this. Can you believe this? I guess there's some stuff you made. He would probably be like, and after a while, be like, wait a minute, like, where the hell are you working? Like, what the hell is going on there? Most of it's probably not even true, but it's just like rumorville and stuff like that. So that's going to breed insecurity. Like, I never truly thought about that, Gilbert, until you said that. But it's just like the trauma that we said, don't trauma share. Don't bleed on your spouse. But then, you're essentially taking that stuff home, to your spouse or your significant other too, and they're going to feel, you know what I mean? They're going to feel like the same way. And like, I think that's pretty interesting, like to actually hear. So, we'll have to think about that one.
No, exactly. I never liked that. It's like it all comes back to what you said when I first met you. Like if you don't have the facts, then shut the fuck up. And it comes the same thing with gossip. If you don't, it's like the facts of the case. Same thing with gossip. If you don't have the facts of that person, and then shut the fuck up. Like if it's just
people just misery loves company, and then you take it home to your spouse, and like you're essentially creating this insecurity to your spouse. So and it's man, that's crazy. Just to hear a woman's perspective on like that side of it, and to think about like if like I put myself in like your husband's shoes, essentially. Like if I'm her husband and I have a wife, I guess I kind of did, but like my ex-wife worked in corrections. I'm not going to go there, but because we get along, we're good friends. But I guess maybe I just relate to what he's thinking. Like, although I was a cop, maybe it made it worse because in my mind, I guess I'm kind of brainwashed too, that like cops are all bad and a bunch of whores. You know what I mean? So when you're on this side of it, you kind of do see that, but it's really just comes down to like a trust issue. But it is the double standard is pretty crazy to see. And like, even for me sitting here listening, like I have an obvious double standard of like, my wife is going to trust me or she's not going to trust me. But then like you as your husband, the things that he would have to either think or hear and know are in his mind, essentially being told that all these male cops try and have sex with everybody. And then like his wife is at work. You know what I mean? Like that's complicated it's a complicated issue to deal with, but like we said earlier, it comes down to trust. Like that's everywhere you go in life.
So I have one question from one of the listeners. They wanted to ask. They asked, "What do you find the toughest part of the job?"
What does he mean? Like being a female, being a cop, or like?
I'd say the both. Like not knowing. I would say like hardest part about just the job in general, and I mean not asking for them, but like I guess that's a good question too. Like the hardest part, just as in general, as a job, like just being a cop, and then a couple on that being a female cop.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part in general, just being away from like your family, like the time, like how time consuming it is, especially like with my agency, the first 3 years that you're there, you don't get to pick where you work, you don't get to pick your hours, you just get thrown wherever, whenever, and like that's just how it is. You don't have a say in it. So it's just the time that it takes away, like the birthdays, the holidays that you have to miss, all of that stuff. And that definitely I think is a big part of it, and not being able to, see your family, see your significant other, and spend as much time with them as you wish you could. Because I'm a big family person, and I like being surrounded by who I know cares about me and who I care about, and being away from them is probably one of the hardest things for me.
Now that second part of that question, being a cop as a female.
I would just say, just in general, like what this whole podcast day has been about is just the perceptions, what people are thinking, and it's always going to be like that. It's not going to change, Just knowing that the second you meet someone, all of these like thoughts are going through their head. But at the end of the day, what I had to start telling myself is, you just don't have to care, dude. Just like with anything else, it is what it is. Just as long as you know who you are and you stay true to yourself and your morals and your values, people are going to keep thinking what they want. So,
Is there any other advice you would, before we get going, is there any advice you would give to a female cop thinking about joining law enforcement or one that's in the academy right now?
if you want to do it and it's something that you've always wanted done, just go for it. Just do it. Just know that there is going to be this negativeness around you being a cop. But at the end of the day, like if you know that you can do it and you have what it takes to do it, then just go for it and just remind yourself every day, like you know who you are, you know what you're capable of doing, regardless of what anyone thinks. So the only thing that matters is that you know who you are and you know what you can do. And no one else knows that but you. So just remind yourself every morning that you can do it and just go for it.
Well, Alma, appreciate your time. It was good to finally have you on the podcast. Thanks for sharing everything that you did, and be safe at work.
Okay, thank you for having me, guys. Finally, it
Thanks.
only took like a whole
I
month.
don't. We might be dragging you back on. I got like a whole list of questions, so
Yeah,
we're gonna have
I'm
to
down.
drag
Let's
you
do
back on
it.
here.
Let's
And
go for
Benny.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
he loves podcasts too, so he'll do
Oh,
it.
he's coming. Hey, he's coming on. That's a podcast in itself for sure. We gotta have him.
Yeah, I'll let him know.
All right.
Perfect.